Today we're going to work through two border sketches. One is from the Creative Memories blog, and the other one is also on the blog, but it's also the back of the Q4 Sketchbook. So just as a reminder, if you're shopping off my website, you can get this Q4 Sketchbook for free. You just need to add it to your cart. So it should show up as one of the first products. Add it to your cart. You can get it free with any uh, purchase as while supplies last. They are about to sell out from Creative Memories. So it does have several layouts in here new to the sketchbooks this year. It did include the measurements, but sometimes the measurements don't really give us a full how-to. I know it's easier to see visually how some of the stuff works. And so it's helpful to sometimes add the videos or the lives to work through with it. So I shouldn't say I'm not a border person. I haven't really made a lot of borders on my own. It used to be, I guess what I'm trying to say is those of you that grew up back in the day of old CM, borders were what we did, right? We created a lot of borders in a lot of ways and we saved them and then put them on full page layouts. Now the trend is that we might make border, but it's part of our full page layout. So we're going to make some borders. I don't have full layouts ready to go with them, but I'll leave that to your imagination of how to use it on your actual layout when the time comes for that. So let's get going. Let's create a little bit. So the sketchbook, we have two to start with. I'm actually going to start with the one that's not on the sketchbook. It's from the Creative Memories blog. Got my whole pile of stuff here. So much fun. And it looks like this. So it's this little Snow Pals border. There will be a handout. It will get to my blog once I have completed this and get all of the pictures posted up there. It's well on its way. I already have the handout started, so it shouldn't be too much longer this afternoon before that shows up. So it's a pretty simple border. Most borders they use pretty similar components, but we do want to play with our Snow Pals punch a little bit. So to create this border, I'm going to read off a couple measurements to you. You can write them down or you can just wait for the handout later. So the base of this border is 2 3/4. Has a layer above this, the red border, which is cut with a decorative blade, and it's 2 1/4. And then we have two pieces sitting here side by side on the third layer. Those are 1 1/4 and 3/4 sit on top of each other. And then we have our Snow Pals uh, cruising along there in the middle, overlapping it. And then we added a couple of extra ones on there. So let's create another one. We'll create that same border again. I'll have two, and then we will work on our Snow Pals. So again, I'm using the Flurry of Fun collection. So I'm using these two prints are the third layer. I have some scarlet, or I could use fire shimmer. I'll use the scarlet for my red layer. And then I should have the piece of blue, the back of the blue. Oh, it is the stripes. Okay, so that's over there. So we'll need our trimmer. So our base layer is 2 3/4. A lot of border bases are 2 3/4. Sometimes you get 3 inches. Maybe a skinny border if you don't have a lot of layers, it's more like 2. So there's that. And then the back side of this is that striped piece, which is 3/4. And for I'll go ahead and cut the blurry piece. I'm not sure what this paper is called. That one is 1 1/4. And now I need to move on to my red layer. The decorative blade is optional. I like the decal. I feel like it mimics this kind of a snowdrift a little bit. People like to use it for sand. And this one is going to be 2 1/4. I do need to give myself that decal edge first. Before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my straight blade. So that gives me all those border pieces I need. I build borders from the bottom up. Sometimes you can work from the top down also. So I'm going to adhere the red centered down the middle. You could also do a cardstock base. We talked about in the other one, sometimes it's hard for me to use a paper that it's really pretty on the bottom because you're only seeing the top edges. And I really do like that stripe back there. Then we're going to adhere these pieces. And they're going to sit side by side, or you can overlap them if you need to, but you need to kind of gauge. We're just getting a little peek of that red. It's going to pop out against there. You can see how thin it's going to be to get those to sit side by side. You can always use repo tape for this one just in case you need to make a little adjustment. Now it's ready for whatever you want to put down the middle. So imagine that this was any papers. You can see though, why do I have a gap there? I might have cut my paper. My paper might have shifted when I cut the deck. It was entirely possible. I notice that though more against the stripe. So I'm going to straighten up the bottom one, straighten at the top. If I can't make it work, I might have to pull these up and retrim it because that red is noticeable with how much it pops. I think it did. It must have cut crooked. I can see a lot of it. Okay. Well, sometimes I tell you things won't bug me. That will bug me. This is why we use repo tape, except I didn't use repo tape on this one. It's okay. It's okay. How many of you have had to pull apart a border? See what my problem is. Problem is I can't make it. I might just recut it completely. Because if I cut it any different, it's going to be too small. Okay, so this side's fine. 2 1/4, top to bottom. I'll have to rewind later and see what I really did. I mean, that looks straight. Maybe I should have used repo tape this time. On the middle. And always save this other piece for something else where it's not quite so obvious. Or maybe that's when the top end of it's going to overlap something. Or actually, the problem could have been one of the strips. So, you know what I actually should have done? The middle of this is going to be covered by the border. So if you have a gap a little bit, maybe you realize one of your cuts is crooked. It must have been one of the prints. This one looks fine. Sometimes when I'm in a hurry, I don't notice if the paper shifts. I'm going to just pull this down a little bit. My snow piles is going to cover the seam. We can't forget that. So it's more important to make sure the outside edges line up. And then if you have a gap like I did, you didn't really have to recut it. You could just go down the middle. And then it's ready for the snow piles. So let's play with the snow piles. How many of you got the punch? It sold out very quickly. I have them in stock. Again, I sold out for a minute and then I found some more in the garage. But I have punched 2 of them. I have punched out of white shimmer. This one is in white shimmer. I don't know how well you're going to be able to tell on camera. This one is white shimmer. And then these are punched out of bright white cardstock. And then you need some sort of scrap paper or something to work on that is okay to get inky. So you don't want silicone, you don't want your matte, you want something that you can play with. The nice thing about white is we all have plenty of it, so if you punch it and you screw up with it, it's totally fine. So we're going to talk about a couple of different ways to do this border. If you read the blog instructions, they have you punching different colors. So you could punch black, punch red, and then cut them apart and adhere them along there. That's too much for me. I don't want that badly. It will offer you a little bit more perfect of a layering. I'm into not so perfect. So I started out the first batch I used with pens. So I'm sure you guys have an assortment of round tip pens, fine tip pens. We all have more pens than we ever really use. So we're going to play with those. We're going to talk about putting it on shimmer versus the white, the bright white, and then we're going to talk about the shimmer pens. So how many of you have some of the shimmer pens? I have them. I haven't played with them too much. We've had definitely a rainbow so far from Creative Memories, but we do have a couple of gaps, and perhaps they will release them down the road. But for those of you that aren't aware, Creative Memories doesn't actually manufacture the shimmer pens. They're just buying them branded. So that they are very similar. They're made by the same manufacturer as Wink of Stella. And so I was able to find a source actually and get red. So the red was only available with December Days tag set. Green was available with the Christmas Charm Buy It All. We have had gold and silver and clear. We've also had pink and purple. And the colors we've not had that I do offer my website is black and brown. So I have pulled out black and I've pulled out red. They're Wink of Stella because I didn't open the December tags for me either. And then I do have the green, but the green also comes a Wink of Stella. So they look the same if you notice. Some of them, however, will not have a color-coded cap. That's the only gap with it. So if you want any of these, you might want to grab them. I really love the black. And I'm not saying that just to sell them. I just really, the shimmer shows up. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see on camera. So basically we're going to play a little bit. So I used shimmer paper first and then the black and white. The difference of painting on the shimmer. So I used a black round tip pen. You can use a dual tip. Or the round tip from the old. So the on the regular dual tip. So we also have the dot tip pen. They're a little inkier, so that you will need to be a little bit more careful. It's a little bit bigger of a tip. So you can just find somewhere to color on here. So I just kind of draw the bottom line of the hat, and then you're coloring out. Because it is white on white, maybe it actually would be smarter to use like a light beige or something that has differentiation from the white. It was sometimes a little hard for me to tell, excuse me, if I got the full edge of it, but I just kind of move it around until I can see and color the hat like that. It's a little easier to do. And that brim is kind of low too. He's going to have low eyes. You can also use the pen just to get up a little dot to give the little eyes on there. So this is one way, it's just to color. When you color on the shimmer, it does give it a little bit more of a muted effect. I don't think you're going to subtly be able to see that on camera, but it's almost as if you used a little bit of a shimmer pen. There's a difference in the shimmer versus when I color on the bright white cardstock. It's a little denser. The color is a little darker. That is much easier to me to scribble on one than trying to cut out black pieces of paper and adhere them with a precision point. It's much faster for me. Is there a little bit more room for error? Yeah, but it's okay. I'd rather have my subtleties of differences. So that's how you can do the hats and the eyes are just with a black. The Wink of Stella, we'll come back to that. I'll do all the shimmers. The other thing for the nose, so if you have a fine tip orange, it's much easier just to draw a little triangle. It doesn't even really have to be a triangle, just a little stick of something for the nose. It is cute too, if you notice, just to have a little differentiation. Like the ones with hats, I put the noses facing one way, and then the ones without hats facing the other way. So they just look, there's a little bit more variation in them, but real easy to just draw on fine tip. If you don't have fine tip orange, you could just get a tiny little fleck of orange cardstock, and good luck. Good luck adhering that on there. Then they get your little eyes on there. So that's kind of the all you have to do. But then if you want to get a little bit more into it and give them some scarves, you can pull out some colors. The blues will go best if you're using Floria Fun. And then we'll also color the heart. So I used a red round tip also for the hearts. Err on the side of giving yourself too much of a white margin. If you have a heavy hand or heavy push, it will push out your edge into kind of the hands a little bit. It's a subtlety you probably can't even see on camera, and no one's really probably going to notice. But something I noticed when coloring is just to it's easier to color out than try to go too far and there's nothing to do about it because there's no white out. We don't have any white out here, so if you make a mistake, you're stuck with it. Unless you want to cover it up with white, which you could do. So easy to color in the hearts with the marker. And then for the scarves, you can use a round tip, which is what I did, or a fine tip. And I'm just circling underneath his chin and giving it a little tail. And it's if a little off, it's okay. You know, none of our scarves sit on our neck uniformly. There's the round tip end of the metallics. The metallics have more of a brush tip, so that's going to be much easier than the dot tip pen. It's going to be a little bit more similar. If you use the dot tip end, like I said, it is fatter and it's inkier. It's harder to get to control it. It's just bigger. So I recommend starting with the fine tip of the dot tip or the metallics. For the shimmer wands, if it's your first time priming it, inevitably I always get extra that comes out. Once it's primed, you should be good to go. I actually preferred these over the markers because it's kind of like painting. You're just going to brush on where you want the shimmer. The black shimmer is really pretty. I liked on the bright white though. So my preference was in the end when I punched, in white shimmer and I used pen, I used in bright white and I used pen and I used bright white and used shimmer. My preferred combination was bright white cardstock with shimmer pens. If you use shimmer pen on shimmer cardstock, it is going to be more muted. If you are new to priming them, inevitably when I'm squeezing, I get extra that comes out. You just want to just get it on your paper. It kind of makes a little puddle, and then you can kind of use it as like a watercolor paint pot to do that. So the black I loved black. And then the red, I did the hearts with the red. So this punch is a little fussy if you want it to be, or you could just keep all the snowmen white. I love the combination with the shimmer pens. I did paint a few scarves green over here. I don't like the green with the Flurry of Fun. There's nothing that kind of coordinates it, so I wouldn't use the green unless you're using different paper. But you can paint. I should have got a blue shimmer pen. I don't have one open for myself yet. Or the gold. The gold kind of gives the yellow effect, which is pretty also for the scarves. Just paint a little scarf on there. Oh, I haven't gone this far yet. Obviously, I didn't do any of them, but I didn't do the mittens, so it's probably easiest to give them black mittens. Or you could go through and do blue. They're going to have a mitten on their hand opposite part. Kind of forgot about the mittens. I won't lie. It dries very fast, but you do want to give it a little bit of time to dry before you move it around. And then you might be saying, well, what about the holes? So I didn't realize at first that the punch has holes in it. So you could dot black in, but then it might be harder to see or might not show up the same because you're going on the paper underneath. Or you can get a little bit of black cardstock. I have some extra black shimmer. You're going to cut little strips, flip your snow pals over, grab your repo tape, and you're just going to adhere it behind there so that the black shows through on the abdominal buttons. A little bit of more work, like I said, than some punches, but the cuteness factor is overload. So doing it this way with the pens gives it a little bit more of a uniqueness to it, but to me, this is much easier for me mentally than trying to punch in different colors and cut the pieces apart and glue them on. But if you are particular in your consistency, you might choose that. Or you can just get your shimmer pens and punch in bright white. And look how cute the border is. So on this one, I did use 2 different blues to alternate the scarves. I need to go back through now. This is going to be a challenge. I'll probably just leave their mittens white. I'd have to pull up this whole thing to get black mittens because you cannot paint or color when you're already on the background. It will bleed through, it will go through, and then that would not be great. So that is the Snow Pals border. So you can easily adapt this with other papers, other punches. It is a nice background for punches that are not as generic, that have, nativity would be really cute, the mountains, cityscape, some of our portrait landscape, meaning it's a picture, it's a character of punches. It's a nice background to highlight those. So they are super cute, keeping warm. And again, these instructions are on the blog. They will also be on the handout that I put up later. So have fun with your little snowman. We're going to move on to the sketch that's on the back of the sketchbook. They used it with the Perfect Kitty paper. I told you I don't love this pink combination with the collection. So I wanted to remake it a couple of ways. I have an example here. I made it with Back to School. And we're going to make it again with Flurry of Fun. So one thing about the sketchbook, even on the sketches, is they are showing you beginner, intermediate, and advanced options. So you can start out basic and add in extra steps or layers as you desire. So on this border sketch on the back, I don't know these images, other than this one I can get off the blog. These images I can't find anywhere to lift. So I won't be able to put these on my handout, but it is a 3-inch base, 2 1/4 second layer, and then we have the 3/8 of an inch in the sticker along here. If we use bigger punches that we're going to talk about, you might not have room for these 2 layers. So the first beginner layer is just these 2 main layers, a 3-inch, 2 1/4, and then you're putting on some shapes in the 2 border layers. In the intermediate level, they're adding in 1 3/4 inch square. The easiest way to do this is with the square punch. If you don't have the square punch, I do recommend getting it for projects like this. Of course, you can cut squares at a 1 3/4, but it's very hard if you've watched Megan and I in class, even before this came out, to get consistent. Sometimes we cut with the differences of a 16th of an inch or so, and that variation does show up when you're putting squares side by side. The advanced option is to add in 2 by 3 papers or prints for the background. So we're building the background differently. Then we're layering on 2 1/4, and then we're adding in squares and putting shapes on top. And if we have space, we'll add in the skinny border option. So on this border I created with Back to School, I used 2 by 3 inch prints. Then I put on the 2 1/4 layer, which is the green. I punched squares in cardstock, and then I added in the 3/8 of an inch skinny strip, which could also be a border strip. And then, as you saw in the previous session, I used a great length sticker because they're super skinny and some of them do have a little texture. The back to school embellishments was a nice collection to use because it came with these epoxy stickers. Sometimes I don't know what to do with those little epoxy stickers, but because they're small, it lets me put them on the squares and have room for the double border. So if you have little things like that, rather than sprinkling them all over your page like we used to do in the 90s, you can create a border like this that just gives you a little space to highlight them. If I were going to redo this border, I would probably flip a couple of components. It's just going to change what you put on top of there. I love the prints, but in the end, you don't see a lot of the prints that show through the bottom. And that was a little sad to me to cover them up with the green. So then I was like, well, what if I had punched the prints from the punch and did cardstock on the bottom? I would have seen more of the print, and maybe then I would have left off the stickers because the stickers would disappear for sure into these prints. Or I could have left those prints showing without a sticker, and then the ones with the yellow buses, I could have kept a sticker on because it would pop out against that yellow. So something to think about there. You're not going to see very much of the papers on the bottom. So this builds on a 3-inch base. So I do have a piece of 3-inch navy cardstock. I have a piece of 2 1/4 of this print. I could use red, or I could use this side. So if I'm doing the very basic, the one at the top, I have a 3-inch piece also. I have a piece of Starry Shimmer. And then for a border sticker, I could pull out another great length one, or I could just skip it. It would have to be pretty skinny. And if I wanted to have room for shapes, if I'm doing little shapes, I'd have room. If I had bigger shapes, maybe I wanted to punch something like the scallop circle. I have this on, so the scallop is a 3-in-1, so it's going to give me 2 or 3, 1, 2 or 3 pieces. This one is set on step number 2. So it's going to fit something nicely like this without having to have 2 things on the bottom. So if you're doing just a basic, whatever you can fit in, whatever the shape punches are, like light bulb. I'll just use this as my scrap. All of these shape punches are sitting inside of a 1 3/4 inch square already, so you know they're going to fit in this space. Maybe at an angle, but they're going to fit. So the original design, the beginner design, is just having shapes along like that. It's a little boring. I suggest doing either the intermediate or the advanced one to give these shapes a little bit of base to them. So the next step could be, if I wanted to add a layer, is to use the square punch. Maybe I'll do another one out of the red. You can line up your squares. Maybe just use one strip still. which does give you space to use a little bit of a thicker one if you wanted to. You could line up your squares, and then if you're going to use this skinny strip, you would need to have a small design, which you might be able to get away with like the small insides of that. But anything else, punch is going to be too big. You're going to need to have stickers or something ready to put on there. Would be the intermediate layer. And then the final layer down here, if we want to use the 2 by 3 inch strips, it actually doesn't matter what your base is. You could use the cardstock, or you could use just the backing sheet from the paper pack, because we're going to cover it completely with the paper. I can go ahead and I'll go ahead and cut one, because I could use this with this as a border for one of my extra snowman. So that's actually where I'd probably land with this, is if I keep these 3 pieces and then I have my extra snowman that I was playing with. The snowman will fit very nicely along there, with that along the bottom if I finish one of those. I'll save the navy for that. I'm going to cut a 3-inch strip here to build this advanced border technique on. All about how much time you want to commit to the project. I already pre-cut 2 by 3 inch rectangles. So if you have 2-inch strips, and I had some left over from my simple kit project, if you have 2 strips, you're going to end up with 8 pieces. So this gives you a little bit of option for how you want to place them if you like both sides. So I can just start putting them on here and deciding which ones I want to show. What I want to have next to each other. Remember, I'm not going to see a lot of this if I'm going to cover it up with the strips as shown. I was thinking actually if I kept the darker ones on the bottom, just use the darker sides. I could come back through with these papers and punch them for the top. Then I'm going to have the light against the dark contrast. So let's start with that. So I'm going to tear these on here. This is where you might find it's a little short. Maybe you're 3 inches. Some are a little taller than others. If you orient one side of it straight, you can always clean up the other side. Just give it a straight cut. This is a good technique when you have leftover pieces. Maybe you have a collection that you've cut apart. Some of the blog posts use a lot of paper. You might have a lot of scraps. This is one that can use those up. So it looks like I'm a little longer actually than 12 inches. You can see I'm hanging over here. So I could give myself a clean cut to keep myself at 12. And if you have any overhang, it might make it a little skinnier than 3 inches, but it's totally fine. Give yourself, just clean it up. So this is now my border base. So then I need a 2 and 1/4 for the top. So I could use this paper again, not have to put myself on. I could flip it and use red. I could also make it skinnier. If I skip that step completely, maybe I just want to go straight into the squares. It's a little tricky sometimes. You get small pieces of paper in here to get the square out of there. These light colors are really going to pop. Maybe I think, you know what, these are 1 3/4. I really want to see more of the print underneath. I could reduce the size of the strip down to 2 inches. It's just not going to give me as much space to layer in the skinny borders. Kind of depends on your priority. I need some more of this paper to get more squares. Could always cut my strip out of Starry Shimmer to run down the center. I'm not totally sure I have more of this paper though, which is that print. I can get some out of here. I start going through my scraps, like what do I have that I'm willing to give up? I also have this swirl paper. It's a little bit brighter blue. I could do that. I have red. I have the backside of that. I think this paper's gone, so I'll have to move on from it. I'm gonna cut a 2-inch piece, not 2 1/4 from the starry. I want to try to see more of that print showing through the bottom. I can go ahead and lay it under here and then I can decide for sure which pieces I want. I could also keep the plaid, just as a little dark. No. You could also leave blank spaces. I only have one of these. I'm gonna keep it in there. I like it. So once you know you're set with your pattern, I can adhere these. Maybe you want to adhere the blue first. It's up to you which piece you do. And go through and add your squares. This is where the world of options is really big. You could decide you like the base and you love the snowman so much that you just want to run snowman down the middle and be done. Super cute, super adorable. You could decide that you want an excuse to use either your scallop circle or your scallop square punch. And fit those pieces in along the way somewhere. If you use the scallop, then you could come back through with the mini punches if you have the mini snowman or the mini snowflake. You have some extra. You could even use anything extra. I was about to pull out white shimmer, but I have these too. Take advantage of your scraps. You could put, little snowflakes in the center of your scallops. You could flip the middle, use the 2 pieces or punch it with 3. Would be cute. If you use one of these punches, you're not going to have the extra space to run the long strips down either, but that's fine. You could always alternate too. You don't have to put the same thing in every one. So do you have a larger punch maybe you want to use there, a larger snowflake? Or you could even cut a section of snow pals. You could get about 3. Maybe you want to put 3 down the middle and decorate your squares differently on the outside. Maybe you want to just do a duo for one of the sections. You could do that also. Get some little mini snowman. Once there was snowman, you could sit him right there in the middle. Or if you want to keep to the original layout, and the squares would be the same way. The squares are going to fit down the middle, and I could put this on number 3. Show you all 3 pieces. I'm trying to think what I want to punch this out of. Need some scrap. Get some light blue. I don't want to scrap my paper. This is light blue or baby blue cardstock, one of the 2, but which will fit nicely. A little postage effect. Fill it up with snowman or snowflakes. It's like a little frame. So you could do something like that down it. Okay, or back to the original sketch. If you want to run down the 3/8 of an inch piece, you could use some cardstock or some stickers. As we saw before, I have my trusty jumbo Great Links because they're so skinny. I think these blues are a little brighter. Let's see if I have something lighter. There's just one blue. It'd be fun to use up that sticker strip. Those are a little too teal. White would be nice too. I'm like, do I have any white? There's some white long ones. We did not have rainbow dimensions in white, so it would just be a straight sticker. There's a navy one too. I could punch a border punch. The border punches are usually a little within an inch, so something you punch with a border chain style is going to be pretty big unless you choose something skinny like double rickrack. Or we could just use stickers to go down the line. Trying to think, decide what I want to do. It'd be fun to use up that. Is that purple though? That actually might be purple. I think that's purple. Never mind. I was getting better light and realized I don't like that idea. I like this one. It has a real subtle little polka dot effect, which kind of looks like snow. I could layer that with and do white along the bottom. Patty, I'm glad I'm not the only one that stores my Great Lengths that way. It is easier for me to flip through them. Like I said, I've debated putting them in a binder, but then I'd have to get the binder out. They would be more organized. I'm not the original owner of most of those. Obviously, you guys know I've done a lot of buyouts over time, and I don't usually mess with selling partial sticker sheets. They just all go into my stash. And that is one stash. I don't mind being big because it never fails. Like I run out of the color I want, or I need a second one. So I'm gonna do white along there, and then I'm gonna do this one with the I have a little snow effect. It's dark. It's gonna pull out the contrast against the plaid underneath. This two straight lines kind of mimic the stripes of the plaid. Yeah, sometimes I don't know. Actually, I think I do have some of those in stock right now, the Decofile sticker folders. If you want something to get to earn the freebies today. If I didn't, this is not how you're supposed to use it. Let's just say that. They really come with 3 pockets. I'm so lazy. Put any of them in a pocket. It comes with 3 pockets. I have a few in there, and I used to have them by color. And like I said, I did not used to have this many of them. So you could put it in actually in these are folders. You could put stuff in. I use it as more of an envelope now because this stash grew with a couple of buyouts so big. Now it's just an envelope. It sits on my thing. But I do have some of those in stock. Okay. So I put those on there. So now I've reduced the amount of space that I have for anything punched. So I could use the smallest section of the scallop, and I could also punch the circle out and have that little medallion if I wanted also. Oh, I need to turn this. This is only on 2. I need 3. I wanted the little piece. Ooh, and I just threw it on the floor. Sometimes these little pieces run away. And then I could put my minis. I could still fit my minis inside of those. For a little snowman. That would be cute. Actually, the little rings. I like the rings. The squares work fine. If you choose that, there's nothing wrong with that. I like the rings because it's a contrast to all the squares, all the straight lines that we have. And it pulls in the design of this burst. It pulls that. So anytime we can repeat a design element, the eye is going to appreciate it because it kind of pulls it across the layout to see. We'll probably have to punch some though in a darker color. I think that light blue is going to be too light. And then you're going to end up with all these rando pieces, which if you have any of those old shape maker containers, remember the makers from old CM? I'm sorry my thing shakes so bad when shakes the table, shakes the camera when I punch these, because these are a very hard punch because you're going, when it punching 3, you're going through 3 layers of punching. But those old little plastic containers for the shape makers would be really good to keep these pieces or in the photo cases. Someone's asking me about the mittens. You know, I haven't even punched the mittens yet. I should get one of those mittens BMCs because it doesn't actually punch out the mittens out of it's a knockout punch. I'll have to grab one. Angie, will you give me a mittens punch? See if she hears me. Dark, you can see really pops out against the lightness. So alternating those would be nice. Here goes a shake again. Not too bad. probably would need a mixture between the two colors. So yeah, great suggestion in the chat with the mittens. So the mittens punch is going to punch out, the BMC is going to punch out tiny little mittens. And what are you going to do with those? This is a perfect little border to showcase those minis in. So you don't need your paper holder. You just need the cartridge holder. And then they are tiny little mittens. To adhere these, I would use your precision point, but they would be super cute. So thank you for suggesting that, Joanne. That is a really cute. I honestly haven't even used the mittens punch yet. I was too smitten with the Snow Pals. Somewhere to put those. They would fit, two of them would fit in the larger ring, which is going to overlap to great lengths. Then you have these little curly cues also coming out of the mittens. So it's kind of like a little happy accident, all these little pieces. Just have fun. Get your readers out and get your mini glue out because those things are tiny. And as another bonus, like we just talked about, the little mini sparkles that come out of it will again also play off of that print. So you could have a lot of fun creating some collage layouts with these. Maybe I'll get myself one of these. You can see how nice it is too to kind of choose different colors of cardstock. The monochromatic look is pretty. I need one more color. I need a lighter color, so probably the lighter blue. I have to save all these other pieces for more borders. It's a tight fit to get the mittens in there, both of them. Overlap them. And this is when you go down the rabbit hole and you start playing with all your different combinations. Decide what would pop best. You could separate out your mittens. Maybe that'd be better if you're using the little circles. These mini punches. I do have the snowman, the mini snowman I have in stock. The mini snowflake, when I do find one of those, they sell pretty fast. And of course, the mittens is a current BMC. So you should be able to get that one for a while. So lots of tiny little options for this border, and definitely get out the mittens. That was a fun little option to add in the curly cues and whatnot for that. So as you can see, you could spend a lot of time playing with these punches. So I will get my border, I will finalize my borders. I will get them photographed, and I will get my handouts up next. So I appreciate all of you joining me today for my holiday open house. I just wanted to have fun and do some projects and kind of do kind of my end of the year thank you to all of you who have supported me in many ways. I will also note for those of you that have shopped the website, I appreciate all of your patience too. A couple of weeks ago, I did have the bot attack, and so I had to add some fraud software. And since then, it seems some of you have had a little bit more trouble paying and checking out. And so they are trying to figure out why that is. It seems like if you do have trouble shopping or checking out, sometimes a different browser, sometimes it's a pop-up because PayPal pops up if you're choosing that versus just using a regular credit card. You can assure that it is all secure no matter which payment you're choosing, but for some reason it is trying to find the balance between suspected fraud and real. So it's not that you like they suspect you of fraud. It's just something that seemed to be catching places. So they are working on that. And again, there are the gifts with purchase I'd hoped would be added automatically, but that's not working yet either. But we can always have goals for 2025, right? Do everything a little bit better, a little bit more smoother. And I appreciate getting all that worked out in the background because then it gives me more time to do the creative stuff like this and do the scrapbooking, which I do appreciate. So I appreciate you all showing up today for your supportive comments, for supporting me through this year. I did not think I was going to get emotional. It has been a lot this year, and I've been blessed in many ways. And I appreciate you guys for being part of that journey. Goodness, you can tell I'm this fall has about killed me in terms of um, how busy it's been, not just in work and life and website and figuring it out. It's like everything I do now, of course, is other layers of figuring out with the web pages and get the handouts and figuring out things on YouTube, and it's never ending. But I can only do it all because you guys all support me. So I appreciate that, and my kids appreciate that, so that I can be available to go to all the school things and pick them up and take them to PT and all those things. I am very blessed to have the benefit of being a sole provider and a full-time mother, and you guys are to thank for that. My eyeliner is probably running down my face now. But thank you all from my heart for supporting me in all the ways and forgiving the faults. I'm my own worst critic, as Angie tells me. So anytime the stream goes bad, the recording goes bad, I'm like, oh, I got to figure out how to do it better. It'll get there. In 2025, we'll handle our goals. So thank you all. I love you all. You are all dear friends to me now. I've got to know so many of you online, and I appreciate you being part of my life. So I hope you have a happy holiday. I hope that you get it all set up and your trees done, your ornaments done, and your baking done, and your wrapping done, because that's my goal now in the next 12 days is to get all this done and posted and turn my focus around on that. I think Emerson's coming home tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow, Saturday, and we're going to focus on the holidays for real, and I'll finish my shopping. So thank you all. I love you all, and I'll see you for Winter Frolic in 2025. So make sure you sign up for that. See y'all.